This is Assassin Mental Performance, where we build athletes to become incredible human beings. Talent might open the door, but leadership, accountability, and mindset determine how long you stay in the room. Tonight's guest is an absolute trailblazer in the game of hockey and somebody who has shaped the future of women's hockey at the highest levels. A standout athlete at Brown University, two-time captain, all Ivy League player. She built a reputation for toughness, intelligent, and leading by example. 123 games played, 133 points, point per game player. And as an official, I got to reference 86 PIMS. Then a trip to women's professional hockey, 26 games, 14.6 PIMS. She was a GM in the league, worked very, very hard to get there. Hayley took that same mindset into the business side of hockey, becoming an executive vice president of hockey operations for one of the most respected leagues in the world, the American Hockey League. By the way, she was my boss. Now, as senior agent and director of women's hockey, she's helping guide the next generation of athletes through the pressure, the opportunity, and the evolution of the game itself. This conversation is about leadership, growth, pressure, and vision. So let's go, Hayley Moore-Katyak. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Carl. I'm so happy to be here. It's great to be with you.
Perfect. Eventually, the role you play comes to an end, but the mindset you build stays with you forever. What does that mean to you, Hayley?
Yeah, well, for me, I've definitely had a lot of different roles across my career, from playing through coaching, GM, league executives, team president. Now my role in the agency world's here, and my roles within each of those stages have changed as well. My role as a player was never the same year to year, and my role in my teams professionally, it's been something that's varied throughout the course. I think that statement just means that, your role is never going to be the same from one year to the next, even if you are in the same position. That changes based on the people around you and the needs of your team. For me, just taking the same mindset and approach in how I try to tackle the work that I do is something that, that statement kind of leans toward, of just what your preparation looks like, what your habits look like. Those are things that can remain consistent no matter what your role looks like.
Excellent. Let's go back a little bit and talk about the path that led you to where you are today.
Yes, probably a little unconventional. I think for me, my path was never really one that I saw where I was going before I got there, if that makes sense. A lot of the roles that I've had, or the organizations I've been with, I've been in roles that were new, either to the organization or that I was, it was the first time that a woman was in that role. I think back even to when I first started playing hockey. I was the first girl to play hockey in my hometown, and that was kind of new. And, you fast forward through some of my roles professionally. I was a director for a girls club organization, the East Coast Wizards, and I was the first director that was ever on the girls' side of that program. So it was a role that had been created and established for the first time. You had mentioned my role at the AHL, first time that a woman had been in that role. And now in my current role with Cortex, it's a role that, has just been built in the last few years. So it was never really a path that I saw, because a lot of the steps of my path didn't exist until I got there, which is pretty unique. But for me, it's been the biggest blessing of it all, being able to be in roles where you can build something from scratch, is really, kind of a fun and challenging space to be in, that provides a whole new lens to look through each time you get into a new space. So it's been kind of unconventional in that sense, but For me, I've just kind of taken everything in stride and never had expectations for like where I needed to go next. Just have tried to stay present in each step of the way, do my job and enjoy it. So the passion is really what has led me to where I am and led me each step of the way, just enjoying the game, enjoying the people that I get to work with. It's just such an honor to be able to work on behalf of a game that I've loved since I was a little girl.
That is being able to tie the passion with what you love and being able to show up every day for it. So that is a blessing. Right now, no thinking. Are you driven more by fear or confidence?
Right now, confidence, but it was not always that way. There was a long period of my life where I think I was more afraid to fail than I was confident in myself to get my work done, whether that was on the ice or off the ice. And it's been something that I've worked on my entire life, is that confidence piece. But right now, where I stand, confidence is definitely the driving force.
Excellent. For me, I've found that confidence is not based on outside validation because I see that as shallow. Where do you feel real confidence comes from?
For me, I think a lot of my confidence just comes from repetition, from preparation, from mindset for sure. And, just having learned how to fail has actually given me the most confidence, kind of eliminating that fear of failure that I talked about earlier, because I know that with each challenge, no matter what side I end up, whether it's, a stumble or a huge success, that I'm going to gain a ton out of it. It took me a long time to learn that, but, going through each of those experiences throughout my life has just helped me gain confidence knowing that no matter what the outcome, I'm still going to grow from an experience. And that's just sort of what I've taken comfort in over time.
Excellent. What do you feel the greatest attribute an athlete or even yourself can possess?
Oh, that's a good question and definitely a broad one. But for me, relationships have been a huge part of my experience. I think the reason why I've played the game is, the love of the game, the passion, but also the people that you're able to do it with. That's been the same for my professional experience. So, being somebody who is passionate, has extremely high work ethic, I think those are some characteristics that need to be unwavering,
Mm.
but valuing being part of a team and the relationships around you is something that I couldn't live without in any of my roles.
Absolutely. Would you, given the correct circumstances, if you're in the right mindset, do you feel more comfortable reacting or responding?
I feel more comfortable responding. I don't like to be reactive. I definitely consider myself more of a proactive person in general. But, it's funny because as a player, I was somebody who I think prided myself on having good instincts and good reactions to situations on the ice. But, as a professional off the ice, for me, it's been important to not be reactive and to be thoughtful. That approach has, I think, really benefited me.
Excellent point. What do you feel athletes today misunderstand most about mental training versus physical training?
Just how important it is and how it's not something that you can, hear a speaker come to your team once and you've got the mental side of the game all figured out. It's not something you can just, kind of do when you hit a challenge or, sporadically kind of build in. It's something that needs to be built into your daily habits, be a part of your routine. So I think it's just underestimated how important it is. I don't think that's just for younger athletes. I think that's for athletes at any level right now. It's still a learning process about how big of a component the mental training aspect is.
Absolutely. What do you think? And you deal with a lot of top one percenters who make it to professional hockey. What do you think they do different than the top 10% in the game?
I think a lot of it's consistency. So many tiny little habits that they do consistently. Those things add up. It's not necessarily being the very best at certain things. It's having consistency and mental toughness through
Yeah.
all of the challenges that come because they are going to come no matter what. And I think that top percent is just so consistent in so many different little areas of detail.
What do you feel the difference is between confidence and arrogance?
I think for the most part, a lot of it has to do with how it impacts the people around you. I see somebody who's confident as somebody who lifts up and empowers the people around them, has confidence in themselves, but doesn't think that they're better than anyone else and is part of a something that's bigger than themselves as well. Somebody who's arrogant, I see as somebody who's really kind of belittling the people around them and putting themselves on a pedestal, which does not help the greater good or feed into a team mindset and can be toxic to that person individually. So, a big difference between the two is just on how you treat and respect the people around you with having that confidence in yourself.
You've been in hockey as long as I have. You got to have a funny story. There's got to be something that you kind of, at the end of the day, you looked at and you're like, I've never seen that before. What
Oh my gosh.
moment crosses your mind?
I feel like there's too many crazy things. I mean, certainly in officiating, there's been plenty. I think about in my college days playing to just, crazy bus stories and things where, like I remember losing the ECAC championship game at St. Lawrence and having a 7-hour bus ride back to Brown and our bus broke down and
Oh,
we were stranded on the side of the road for hours, just like crazy, weird things like that. I mean, there's plenty of things within the game that have always been sort of wild and unpredictable, certain situations and things like that. Yeah, I think when you ask that question, I kind of go back to like my early playing days and the chaos that, you kind of ensue as a younger player. Yeah.
what would you say the biggest amount of joy you've received from the game?
Honestly, it just doesn't stop. So that's a
Mm,
really hard question to pinpoint. At every step of my career, I've had so many moments of joy, and they're not just moments where I won a championship or scored a big goal. Of course, like those memories come to mind as well, but I find so much joy in being involved in this sport and seeing it grow. I think for me, recently just seeing arenas, NHL arenas filled for women's
mhm.
hockey has filled my heart like with so much joy. As a little kid, I couldn't even fathom that. It makes me very emotional just to see how far the game has come, to see people like Jessica Campbell on an NHL bench,
Yeah.
female officials on the ice. Those are things that I think back to conversations I had with my mom when I was 5 years old about, like, where my
Wow.
hockey career could take me, and they just make me so happy and joyful.
Wow, that's amazing. And to even think at 5 and where you are and what's happened for the game, that's truly gotta be amazing. It
It
just gives me goosebumps even talking about it for you.
Yeah, it
Uh,
it is. It's really powerful, and it's just continuing to grow, which is really exciting.
mm. Are excuses ever valid?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't really think of a time where an excuse has kind of taken away from what's actually happened. I think accountability is valid. While there can be reasons behind why something happens or doesn't happen, I don't think an excuse is really something that helps the individual who's had the misstep learn
Yeah.
or grow from it. So that's just my take on it.
Well, it's a very good take on it. Do you feel comfort is the enemy of growth?
It's funny because I've actually done a lot of work on myself with this. I've had this sort of underlying fear of complacency throughout my life that I've had to do a lot of work on, and I think that comfort and complacency probably kind of mean the same thing in your question there. I do think that there is a lot of growth that can happen from also being present in your current space and not
Mhm.
feeling this constant need to be overachieving. That's something that I really had to learn for myself over time. So I do think that there's a balance. I think that learning how to be comfortable in a space is also an uncomfortable thing. And uh, growth does happen there. So it is a pretty layered question in that sense. I always thought that if I got too comfortable or was complacent, that I would not continue to grow. And that was something that, put me in this kind of constant state of overworking myself
Yeah.
in certain times. So I think that there needs to be a balance between the two and learning that there is actually growth in kind of being in a stagnant space as well, because there's a lot of mental toughness that comes along with, not constantly kind of taking the next step or feeling like you're moving up to the next team every single time, or you're on a higher line, or you're getting more points than the season before. So I think it's important how you define those words.
Do you have that voice inside your head that doesn't stop talking to you?
Yes.
How do you manage that person?
It's a work in progress. Absolutely. I feel like I do kind of have like that constant, mind going kind of mentality that I've been learning how to slow down.
Mhm.
Reading has definitely helped. I think just finding quiet times in my day, journaling, things that help me actually get my thoughts out and process them, or having conversations with people that I trust to kind of sort through the noise in my head. But it's still a work in progress. I think that we're constantly thinking about, what we can and should be doing, that multitasking that happens inside your head as well. So for me, it's definitely a work in progress, but something I've gotten better on in recent years, just learning how to take a step to slow things down and to reset my brain a little bit.
Right. Finish this sentence. Someone has a killer mindset when they.
Consistently do the little things.
Excellent point. So, in closing, if a young athlete's listening today and they're struggling with confidence, pressure, mistakes, what advice would you give them?
I think trying not to compare to anyone but themselves. And that's something that's really hard to do, especially this day and age, social
Mhm.
media, all the outside noise. But nobody's path to success is going to look exactly the same. Nobody's definition of success is going to look the same. Comparison is the thief of joy, as they say.
Yeah.
I think that is something that really challenges confidence, is looking at other people and measuring yourself to them. So, we talked about my path. Like, my path does not look like anyone else's. I'm grateful for that. And it doesn't need to be linear. You don't have to move on to the next thing that your peers are moving on to because you think that that's the next step to success. I've found that I've gained a lot of confidence in that, understanding, that my path is my own, but trying not to look outside for that validation, as you talked about, and compare or measure yourself to anyone else, because nobody's going to have it all figured out. Nobody's going to have the same path as you. And focusing on what you can do for yourself and letting your passion and your work ethic fuel your day to day, like, that's what will give you confidence, not looking at somebody else and doing something the exact same way that they are.
Right. Is there anything you feel based on our discussion you'd like to add or close out with on your side?
No, I mean, I just think that we are also surrounded by so many wonderful people in any environment that you're in. And for me, I've just learned, especially over time, that your network, your resources, your relationships around you can teach you so many things. Don't hesitate to kind of continue to reach out to the people around you and to learn from them and to share your experiences, because that's what helps everybody grow, gives you a whole lot of confidence. I think vulnerability is something that's so underrated. Having those human conversations with the people around you, sharing your challenges and allowing them to do the same, just kind of humanizes everyone as well, and helps with day-to-day mindset. It also just helps you learn and grow. But that's something that, I've learned, that at a later time in my life than I wish. I wish I had learned that at a younger age, but I've found so much comfort in being vulnerable with the people around me, and making them feel comfortable doing the same, and how much we've
Yeah,
both been able to kind of learn and grow from that.
that's an excellent point. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you, Hayley Morconic. Amazing to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your participation, insight, Amazing conversation, Hayley. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great to catch up.
At Assassin Mental Performance, discipline today, dominate tomorrow. If this conversation helped you think differently about performance, share it with an athlete who needs to hear it. And follow Assassin Mental Performance for more. This will be available on all my social media. Please hammer the subscribe button on YouTube. Follows are great. Amp rapid fire. Remember, knowledge is power when you choose to apply it. Now go out and execute.